Hey everyone, I'm Brian and I'm here to talk about a few topics that obviously a lot of people are talking about. The reason I'm doing this now is because I don't usually I usually just talk about one topic here and there, but I just felt like maybe it was time I talked about a few topics off of, that are on my mind, and I'm pretty sure it's on the mind of a lot of people. The first topic I want to talk about is the World Series, it's Major League Baseball's World Series, especially this year's World Series that just ended tonight, or last night I should say, with the Philadelphia Phillies becoming the world champions. The reason I want to talk about this is because many are saying that this is going to go down as one of the most controversial, if not one of the most out of place, unusual World Series in history. Because one, the World Series was ended on Monday night, and continued last night. What I mean by that is, the World Series, what I mean is that for those of you that were in Philadelphia that are probably going to come home and watch this after you celebrated, in which I can congratulate you and your Phillies for winning the World Series, but for those of you that were there, you know that when you left the stadium at the bottom of the 5th inning, going into the 6th inning, it was tied 2-2. And you all wondered when was it going to resume. Well, weather permitting, it didn't resume yesterday, on Tuesday, because of the weather, but today it did. Or yesterday it did, Wednesday it did, whatever you want to call it. It just presumed. And because of that, the Phillies were able to win the World Series. However, it's in very controversial fashion, because now a lot of people are talking about the fact out there, a lot of the baseball critics, analysts, sportscasters, and all that are talking about the fact that maybe it's time Major League Baseball did what the NFL is doing, and that's put the World Series on a neutral site so that something like this never happens again. From what I've heard, it's happened before in St. Louis and in Cleveland in the past couple of years. But to make sure this doesn't happen again, they are hoping that maybe a neutral site will be voted on in the near future. However, there's a problem with that. It's called tradition. And it's been a tradition to always do 7 games, if necessary, in both ballparks so that fans of both teams can see the World Series, see the teams in their home stadiums. Now, in a way I agree with that, but I also agree with the neutral side, but the way I agree, what I'm saying is I agree with both sides, but the way I see it, and I was thinking about this myself when I heard about this happening, is that if something like this was to take place, if I was the commissioner, I would have kept an eye on the weather, and if I knew it was going to get bad during the game, I would have canceled that game, flew the teams back down to Tampa Bay, or back to the home of the American League team where they came from, and continued the World Series there in a safe, more dome-like environment. And then when I found out the weather was clear, if necessary, or if I can, at least get maybe 1 or 2 games up in the National League team. That's what I would have done. I would have, basically shoveled out the money, if you will, to fly both teams back to the home of the American League team, or the team that had the roof over its head, so that we wouldn't have to have a cancellation or suspension. I would have done that. But then again, I'm not the commissioner, and it wasn't my call. But in my opinion, that's what I would have done. I would have taken both teams, flown them back to the stadium they just came from, the American League Stadium, had the game there, and then flown them back, if necessary, to the stadium of the National League team when weather was permitting. But that's all I have to say about the World Series. But like I said, if I had my way, I would have done just that. Now, getting on to something else. Another topic I want to talk about is a movie that was announced 28 days ago. And that movie, announced in Variety and all over the internet on the news, because of the success of the 2007 20th Century Fox Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, we now have in the works and in production a Yogi Bear movie in the same kind of atmosphere. Now, from what people have said, the movie will be filmed in a real live Yellowstone Park, thus redubbing it and naming it for the movie Jellystone. But there is a but just as there are people that are in favor of it, there are people that are not in favor of it. In fact, there are some that like the idea of movies coming out, but are kind of unsure of how it's going to look. For example, they're not really sure if the people writing, producing, and directing the movie are going to stay true to the characters and the format that was made back in the 60s, 70s, and the late 80s. They're not sure about it, but they can hope and pray that the people writing, producing, and directing this will stay somewhat true, if not mostly true, to the characters. Another question, now, another side of this is that there are some people that don't like this idea. In fact, there are some that have their own movie news shows, have their own movie news shows here on the YT or all over the internet, that say that it's not a good idea to do this. That it would be better if it was probably just animated, or if it was all CGI. Well, I guess what some people don't understand, and some people do, including myself, is that when Alvin and the Chipmunks came out, sure, some people were disappointed at the fact that the Chipmunks weren't like they were on the television show. What the people did is they stayed true to when the Chipmunks first debuted. That's what they did. They stayed true to their very first appearance. That's why they made them the way they were in the movie. The same could be with Yogi Bear, but the thing is, he might be different. And the same can be said for Yogi Bear, but Yogi Bear is a different franchise, and it will be a little bit more different. So it might have a different atmosphere and a different look to it. Maybe one that's true to the characters and true to the formats. But right now, there's that on and off thing. You know, some people liking it, some people not. Some people hoping it's going to be good, some people saying it's not going to be good, and some that are just kind of in between, of like, yay, you know, like basically saying, yay, a movie's coming out, but are we sure it's going to be what we want? So that's all I can say about the Yogi Bear movie. I, for one, have a feeling that it's going to be good, and I got a feeling it will stay true to the format that Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera created back in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. And that's all I have to say about, you know, the certain topics going around here in the world that are on my mind, I should say. If you if you have any questions, just let me know. If you got any comments, just leave them on the comment box here on the YT. And I will talk to you all later. But that's all I can say about the topics that are on my mind. So until then, I'm Brian Walmer saying God bless and peace out.